Hey everyone, welcome to It Tastes Different Gaming Appetizers. And what are we talking about this time? Well, are you playing on the Xbox and looking forward to some of those Xbox or Sony PlayStation exclusive titles, or at least we would hope they're limited. But according to Microsoft, they've confirmed that Sony has blocked 4 games from hitting Xbox forever. Those games include Final Fantasy VII Remake, Final Fantasy 16, Silent Hill 2, and they also mention Bloodborne. So it's basically in the terms of Sony has certain exclusive partnerships or exclusive contract deals with these developers that these titles only come to their console and their console only. And so basically, that's one of the reasons there are exclusion deals with third parties. That's one of the reasons why, for the longest time, people have been wondered, why hasn't Bloodborne, for an example, come to PC at least, right? Sure, it may not come to Xbox, but, all the other Dark Souls from software games have ended up on the PC. So why not Bloodborne? Final Fantasy, again, is one of those things that we assumed or would probably assume that it would hit the Xbox at some later time. But it looks like, in Silent Hill, Bloober Team's been pretty good about doing a lot of things with Xbox. But it seems like this time it's going to be due to exclusivity rules and contracts that's not going to happen for at least the foreseeable future. Of course, contracts can end, things can happen. And when those contracts are over with, those games could float onto the Xbox. But for right now, we won't see them. Could they go onto the PC? We're more likely to see something like that than we are to see it end up on to the Xbox, clearly. So this also brings up another thing that I wanted to put out there into the ether for you guys to kind of chew on. One of the things that's been happening a lot in the gaming circles is the Activision Blizzard whole fiasco of Microsoft buying them, and Sony, yelling foul because of exclusivity, right? That's the whole thing. There's not going to be any competition. You're going to take away all the games, all the exclusivity, for Call of Duty and everything that Activision Blizzard makes. And, and we all know, but as gamers, that Sony's doing it too. And this is perfect evidence that Sony also plays those games, right? I think the main thing that Sony's having a problem with is Microsoft's not going to be the top dog as far as going past what Sony has built with the PlayStation brand, right? PlayStation's always number one. It's always going to be the market leader. I don't see that changing in the foreseeable future, even with Microsoft's addition of Activision Blizzard. So I think what my personal take is that Sony's just afraid that with the acquisition of Blizzard, Activision Blizzard, not that Microsoft will take over, but that basically they'll be more of a competition, a competitor to Sony than they are now. And that's what they're afraid of. They want to be top dog and put everything else down while they can remain on top however they can. So they're playing some shady games. But, again, those 4 games are not coming to Xbox. And, if Sony continues, to do this type of process, and I'm sure Microsoft does it too. So we're not just blaming one side or the other. The only difference is if Microsoft does it, it also is going to arrive on PC as well, right? So you're not alienating the entire player base that way. You are alienating one side of it, but not the entire base, right? So, yeah, I mean, who else knows in the future what games are not going to come to Xbox because of Sony's back dealings with exclusivity contracts for big and upcoming games, right? These are going to be big, popular games upcoming that they're basically cutting off another competitor from having, right? So I don't know. Don't yell foul about them buying a publisher developer, when you're sitting back doing the same exact thing, right? And for more, Call of Duty is a popular game, sure, but I mean, for the rest of the gaming people, we're looking forward to Final Fantasy and Silent Hill and all these things and all these exclusives, right? That third-party exclusives that are coming out. And if Sony continues to do this, that's the only place you're going to be able to play it. But let's go around and see what everybody thinks of this. Pat, what do you think about all this?
Yeah, so I mean, it's all to be expected, right? Sony plays the game, Microsoft plays the game, but now that Microsoft's got a chance to one-up them, and I really honestly do think with this Activision purchase, it could put their revenue above where Sony's is and make them one of the largest gaming companies out there. And give them, in my opinion, give them a little bit more help in the exclusivity realm, because Xbox, if we're talking about Xbox, there's no such thing as exclusivity, right? Because Microsoft is never going to not put something on PC because that's their other market. Microsoft is PC. I mean, that's their market, right? So they're never going to not put it out there. It would just be shooting themselves in the face to spite their nose, right? At that point, because it's their own product. Sony, on the other hand, is trying to do what they always do, retain market share that they own. They don't want to lose any more of the pie than they already are. When we think of it, we think of games coming into. I hate to do this, but Nintendo's not in this running. They're a large company in their own, but we're talking about games that will come to one of the three big players: PC, Xbox, or PlayStation. Those games typically don't come out on Switch until much, much later because the Switch it can't handle it. It has to be recoded and everything to be able to run on the Switch. And then it really does. It still doesn't even run on the Switch very well. But this kind of makes me want to root for Microsoft even more in the Activision sale. When you hear about stuff like this, it's like, timed exclusives, whatever, I'm like, okay, if you don't own multiple consoles like we do, the three of us all own everything. I mean, we own Xbox, PlayStation, Switch, and PC. You're stuck. If you really want to play something when it's brand new and it's only ever going to come out on PlayStation, then you're SOL till you can get a PlayStation, and that's where I really hate the exclusivity market, especially in third-party games. That's my biggest complaint. Third-party studios being pigeonholed into a contract where Microsoft or Sony, I don't care who it is, says, hey, if you want us to publish your game or if you want to put the game on our console, guess what? You're not allowed to put it on the other person's console ever. And I'm like, that's just dirty. You're limiting the revenue of that developer, which then hurts that developer in the long run, in my opinion, because I don't know what the percentage is. I would really like to know what percentage of gamers have both consoles. I would like to know that because I guarantee you it's not that high. It's not that high that they have both. So that means that you have basically restricted the amount of revenue that developer can make because they're losing out on a section of gamers, especially if Sony is saying it can never come out on anything but Sony. So now you're saying not only have they lost the Xbox market, but they've also lost the PC market. To me, I don't know why any developer would take that deal. The only way I could think that a developer would take that deal is if Sony pumped a bunch of money into them to help develop it that they don't have to recoup. That's the only way I could think a company would take that deal. Because if I was a company, I'd be like, why would I take your deal? What are you going to do for me when I'm lost 2/3 of the gaming market? Now, granted, Sony is largely above what Xbox and PC gaming brings in. I don't know if it's more. It might be more than those two combined, but I'm not quite sure. So I don't understand it, and this makes me just want to root for Microsoft even more. It'll give them a leg up in exclusivity market. Because if I was Microsoft, I'd be like, okay, whatever. The only thing we promised you was Call of Duty. And I have no concerns after hearing all this of Microsoft making Starfield, etc. exclusive, not available on PlayStation. Then PlayStation wants to call PlayStation basically wants to play the game of the pot calling the kettle black, right? They're like, Microsoft's going to do all this horrible stuff and make these things exclusive. the same thing they've been doing for years. Their back office deals and garbage, operating style is just coming to bite them. And I am now rooting more than because before I'm like, okay, Microsoft purchases Activision. Cool. That's cool. We get more stuff on Game Pass. If it doesn't happen, I'm like, I'm somewhat okay with that. But now I'm like, screw you, Sony. I hope you choke on this Activision deal and Microsoft gets it and gives you the big old freaking wet willy and you go cry about it. That's what I hope happens. Sony can go sit and spin now, is what I feel. More Sony being Sony. But Shane, what do you think, man?
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I mean, Sony does the same thing essentially that Microsoft is wanting to do with Activision. But the difference is Microsoft's out in the open. Yeah, you guys can stop Call of Duty. We're not going to dumb it down. We're not going to deprive you of anything because they've spent $70 billion. Why would they shoot themselves in the foot of 56 or 62% of the market? I mean, that'd be stupid. Maybe once they start, getting back into the green a little bit, they might, but it doesn't make sense to me. But Microsoft, I believe they'll honor those commitments just for that alone. It's not a gamer friendly move or anything like that. It's just pure financial, common sense. Don't cut off half of your finances. Plain and simple. Sony, they have the lead. They have a good lead, and they deserve the lead they got from the PlayStation 4 era, the way Microsoft really boned the Xbox One. But that doesn't give them the right to act like they're acting, like they're all innocent. And the biggest problem with the way they're acting is they keep saying, oh, we're trying to protect the gamers. No, you're not, you lying bastards. You dirty lying bastards. And nobody on the planet believes that bullcrap. Not even the biggest fanboy can believe that. They're playing this dirty, shady game of where they can buy up exclusivity. Even if they're not buying the developer, they are buying the game. Essentially, they're saying, boom, here's the money. Nobody else gets to play with my toy. That's it. That's what Microsoft wants to do, but they're offering their toy. And Sony has refused their 10-year deal last I read. And guess what? If it gets through the FTC, it gets approved. So Microsoft should say, well, you know what, Sony? I'm going to put it out on your PlayStation 4 for the next 5 years. But no PlayStation 5. I didn't say what I'm going to put it on. I mean, that's just me. But I think Sony has become such a greedy, disgusting place, and they don't hide it. At least you got to give them that. They don't really hide it. They try to pretend it's for, X, Y, and Z issues, but we all know it's just for greed. So they can suck dirty butts in hell for all I care. I think Microsoft, the deal should go through. I think it should be put on Nintendo. It should be put on PC, Steam, PlayStation 2, PlayStation 3, maybe PlayStation 4, but no PlayStation 5. Nick?
Yeah. Sorry. Yeah, we've had my mute button. I mean, you talked about the angry fanboys. I mean, we do have angry fanboys who are also, filing lawsuits against Microsoft for the acquisition. And that's mainly based on Call of Duty, but still they're still talking about the plaintiffs are still kind of putting out there the same thing that the FTC is all of a sudden putting out there, and what Sony has basically been saying about competition and all this stuff, all that stuff. Like, I mean, so yeah, I mean, you will have those fanboys out there that will back them up, but we've talked about this before, and I mean, these guys trying to sue Microsoft over this whole thing. They're just looking for a quick buck, really. They're hoping it gets settled out of court and they just get some money from it or something like that.
Yeah, some troll lawyer.
Yeah, but the whole thing is like, I'm with Pat. I didn't really care if Microsoft got Activision Blizzard or not. Like, if they did, cool. I got more stuff on Game Pass. If not, then okay. Like, I don't really care. But and again, I'm in the same boat as Pat too. With all this back and forth and how crappy Sony has been about this whole thing, and how just like in your face lying to their base about what's actually happening. You know, that's gets me more rooting for Microsoft with getting this type of stuff. I don't like third party deals either. Like, you know, that if you have an Xbox and that's the only console you have, you know, that it's fine if it's Sony bringing out like God of War and Uncharted or whatever to their systems, or Microsoft bringing, you know, Halo. Let's take PC out of this and just look at PlayStation and Xbox. They bring Halo or you know, High on Life, which was also an exclusive, you know, for that just came out recently, and some other ones, Forza and stuff like that, right? And if you only have a PlayStation, you want to play those things, right? That's one thing, right? The same thing with Microsoft and Xbox back and forth. But for third parties, like these are third party titles that should be on everything, right? Because that just alienates that player, right? They don't really, some of them just don't really care about PlayStation and Xbox and all that stuff. They just want to play video games. And they happen to have an Xbox. They happen to have a PlayStation, right? And so they want to play whatever comes out. And so when you're doing stuff like that, sure, for those diehards, or for, you know, if somebody's going to go out and buy a console, you might sway those buyers from purchasing your console versus another. But for those people that already own it, now you've alienated that base, and now they have to go out if they want to play that, right? If it's only on PlayStation or Xbox or whatever, they have to go out and buy one of these consoles now. So, you know, Sony's just doing the same thing. It's exactly right that Sony just doesn't want the competition. They have the competition with Microsoft now, but this will give Microsoft a leg up with the Activision Blizzard deal, more of a leg up than they have currently. And Sony, the real reason is Sony looks at it as being threatening to what they have built so far, right? Not that it's, I don't, you know, yeah, that might put them higher as, you know, the biggest video game company as far as revenue value goes. But as far as like sales and things like that, it's not going to ever top what, you know, how many people in their hands consoles that have PlayStations, right? Versus Xbox. Even with the Activision Blizzard deal, that's not going to like all of a sudden Xbox is going to be on top and Sony's going to be in second place. That's just not going to happen. But Sony is basically just trying to stamp out any competition that's coming their way, right? And they see Microsoft kind of in the rear view mirror, and they're going, "Oh, time to shoot out the tires," basically, right? time to destroy that car before it gets up here because it's coming up fast. And that's the whole deal, I feel like.
Yeah, I think you know, it's not just the competition part. You know, the more competition they have, the more they need to innovate to keep that competition back. I think that's the only reason they came out with their PlayStation Plus, Super Plus, All Stars Plus thing. I think it's just to try to keep Microsoft just that little bit further back, you know, just to, you know, just keep that space because they're happy and they're comfortable. I think if Microsoft would have never put out theirs, that they would have kept that larger distance. Sony would have never done anything like it. You know, I mean, yes, Microsoft put it out there in there for the world to see, but Sony would have never have done it because that's just little bits of money they're not going to make, or, you know, things they have to do differently. That's why you won't see those first party games go to them, because they're not going to do that. They're just not, because their first party makes too much money. And that's not a dumb thing, but they don't want to innovate. They want to just stay on this course of raising prices and making more bank. That's it.
Yeah, we'll see what happens. I mean, you know, basically Microsoft now has to convince the FTC to basically let them move forward, you know, to drop the lawsuit or win the lawsuit, you know, in that aspect. And then, you know, the citizen lawsuit that's now against them, I imagine if the FTC one gets thrown out, that one will get thrown out as well. And those people have lost all their money that they paid for that lawyer to sue Microsoft to try to stop this. I don't, a lot of the arguments that are being made in the lawsuit from the people and from the FTC are a joke. I mean, if anything that's going to hurt the market, yes, less competition in the market is bad, but, Activision Blizzard's been stepping on their own toes for the longest time, being a bunch of D-bags, with everything going on within the company and not keeping their house in order. I think Microsoft can go in there and kind of clean up that house a little bit and make things run a little bit better. Get rid of all the problem children in that company, if you will, and put them back on the road to success and, and basically right that ship, because Activision Blizzard is kind of going downward spiral. I mean, I'm pretty sure their stock has been a downward trend since the acknowledgement of Microsoft wanting to purchase them, because there's just so much turmoil and strife going on within that company.
Did the FTC say anything about when Sony bought Bungie? Did anybody remember?
No. Bungie, but I mean, Bungie
comparatively is a fraction.
But that's what I'm saying is that's what they're comparing this to. They're comparing it to billionaires buying billionaires.
But the quantity of Destiny games sold compared to the quantity of the last two Call of Duty games, I mean, there's a comparison.
But they don't make just Call of Duty. You can't just say Call of Duty because
no. But if you think about it, so when you think of Activision, most gamers associate Activision straight to
World of Warcraft is what I think of when I think of that.
I think of World of Warcraft. I don't think of
Crash Bandicoot.
Blizzard. I think of Blizzard, not. All right. You got me at Crash. I apologize.
It's one company, though. I mean, it's one company.
Yeah, but still, I mean, it's a flailing company that has been drying up for quite a while.
I don't know. You can't say that. I mean, because
you could look at their top franchises and how they've been petering down on sales. They've not increased. They're dropping. The last several Call of Duties have.
I thought the last Call of Duty was like one of the most successful.
No, Modern Warfare 2 may have been, but that's But you look.
Do you realize
Vanguard,
how many games that they make?
Those didn't sell.
They make World of Warcraft, StarCraft. Oh, no, I'm talking about Activision Blizzard together. How many games they make compared to like Bungie? That's why I'm saying you can't compare that.
I understand that, but nobody said I'm talking about their main franchise, bitch, is the Call of Duty though. They're not. Sony is not saying, "Oh my God, you're going to take Blizzard from us." They're saying Call of Duty.
But that's what they're just trying to grab onto the largest selling game that they have. That's it. I mean, and that's what they're trying to do. Because
and if they're being offered the game, then that should nullify every damn thing.
Well, because then they're going to be like, well, what about this game and that game? Because if Microsoft keeps doing this, it's just
should do everything that Sony's doing. And after that, and say, hey, you trying to buy them? Fuck off. FTC soon.
It's a game of whack-a-mole is what it is, because as soon as Microsoft says, I'm going to let you have this one for 5 years, they're going to be like, well, what about this one? And then what about this one? And then what about that one? And how about this one over here?
And that's why Sony should just be told to fucking bite the curb. Spread your cheeks and eat the curb, Sony.
You can't compare the purchase of those two entities. I mean, what does Bungie make? Bungie
makes Destiny now, obviously. That's all they make. But they also bought Sucker Punch.
But I mean, those are individual purchases. We have to look at this as an individual purchase. Like we're talking like a $3.6 million
you
purchase.
Got several developers in there. I mean, that'd be like going in there and buying fucking EA or some shit. Yeah, I get that.
I mean, you're talking about Sony purchasing Bungie for what they purchased them for, like $3.5 billion.
I think it's
something. I think it's 3.5, and then it was 68.7 billion. So there is no comparison. I mean, you could compare Call of Duty, but this isn't just Microsoft purchasing Call of Duty. This is Microsoft purchasing 100 different titles. IPs.
Right. Yeah,
it's more than 100, but Bungie was bought for 3.6 billion.
3.6, yeah.
Okay.
So, quite a big difference.
Yeah, so that's what I'm saying. It's it's apples to oranges at this point. And I can understand why they're a little concerned. I mean, it's the largest gaming acquisition in history. I mean, there has to be some scrutiny to this because it's an unheard of, unprecedented set in the gaming industry. Now, I'm all for the government's doing their due diligence, but right now it just sounds like the FTC and the UK's were just mouthpieces of Sony is what they sound
exactly, because UK was verbatim what Sony was saying in their filing bullshit. And that's what made me the most angry. And then all this stuff with the FTC now, it's almost the same thing. It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
But Sony don't want to lose face. Sony doesn't want to lose foot, and Sony don't want to lose money. And that's all this is about.
Right. But yeah, so I mean, that's what I'm saying is that you can't, I mean, I don't know. I don't think Destiny is as popular as Call of Duty.
I don't know. Either. I don't know. I think I know more people that play Destiny more than Call of Duty, but I know you guys and a few at work. So.
Well, let's look at this. According to player count, there's 60,000 active Destiny players right now. Mm-hmm. There's way more Call of Duty active players right now.
Oh, yeah. There's that many on Vanguard, and that thing sold like shit.
Right. And that's what I'm saying. So, I mean, it's apples to oranges at this comparison. It looks like peak for last year was 79, peak for the year before was 139, and peak for the year before was 241,000. So it's
dropped. But it's been out for a while too, so I can understand.
But they've also released expansion after expansion after expansion after expansion. So
that's true. And people get tired. People do get burned.
So, and like I said, I think this is mostly acclimated from Steam, but I can do the same thing for what's the most recent Call of Duty?
It's Modern Warfare 2 is the most recent one.
So, you can look at the player count for that, and there's 184,000 active players right now in that one alone. Destiny doesn't run Destiny 1 and Destiny 2. It's Destiny 2, So, and they don't run like 4 or 5 different versions of it. It's Destiny 2. So, unlike Call of Duty and stuff like that, they have, multiple spin-offs and multiple different types of games. They're Warzone, they're Battle Royale games, they're whole different franchises. And, and when you think about that, you're like, okay, if this one aspect of Modern Warfare 2 has 190,000 active players, how many of those are buying skins and map packs and things like that? So that's where I would say there's not really a comparison. I still think that Call of Duty is a higher grossing franchise than Destiny 2 by a long shot, even over time.
Yeah, it's yeah. I mean, we'll see what happens with this whole Activision Blizzard thing acquisition, and we're going to continue to see these third-party games from. We're going to continue to see Sony block these third-party games coming to Microsoft. And I say if the whole Activision Blizzard thing goes through, you're going to see that from Sony a lot more. Those third-party blocks from it, because they're eating sour grapes. Everything is sour to them. So, whatever it is, they're just going to shove a cactus up everyone's ass. So that's pretty much where they're headed. Do you guys have anything else you want to say about this before we wrap it up?
No, just trying to avoid that cactus.
That's right. All right. Well, thanks everybody for watching. Make sure to like the video and make sure to subscribe if you're not already subscribed. Hit that subscribe button. And let us know down in the comments below. What do you think of Sony blocking the third-party games that we mentioned there, as well as the whole Activision Blizzard acquisition? What's your thoughts on that? Let us know down in the comments. But other than that, thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.
See ya.